Some suspect that there are hidden groups that have access to incredible secret knowledge. They suspect that these groups control the world, or at least have access to abilities that make them more powerful than the rest of humanity. Would you like to know the secret that they hold? It is a secret that would not seem like it should be a secret. And yet, it is perhaps the biggest enigma of them all. It is simply this. This world, our world, is an incredibly mysterious place. There is infinite mystery all around us, no matter where we care to look. Here is the important part. This world is so huge and so full of unknowns that it would not be a lie to say that we are all surrounded by infinity. Seemingly simple, isn't it? You would think that it is a rather common idea. Certainly, there are many people that say they believe this supposed secret. Many talk about how they believe in the mystery of the universe, and yet these people hold little power that you know. So what is the catch? Perhaps it is because most of these people, maybe all, do not understand the depth of this idea and seldom if ever contemplate the possibility that being surrounded by infinite mystery presupposes that we are actually surrounded by dark and merciless seas of infinity. There is infinity all around us right now. And within this infinity, there are worlds upon worlds that we can access. But none of us are to blame for not contemplating such crazy possibilities. Since birth, we are all indoctrinated to believe that we are solid things, little objects, surrounded by a large, but manageable, universe of other objects. How cozy it all is. How much easier to believe and live that imposed dream than to contemplate the mind-numbing horrors of infinity. If we fight against this indoctrination, the average rationalists all around us will quickly quote the modern scripture. Infinity, they say, is just an abstract concept really, and mystery, well in this scientific age, that's for simple minds and children. Ockham's very sharp razor tells us so, and they go on, using these borrowed ideas, to propose that people should not think too hard, that people should agree with all modern thought, not because questioning is bad, but because the big questions should be left to trained professionals. In the end, we all quote the modern scripture, we are all so sure of ourselves. You could ask just about any person their opinion on just about any topic that you like, and he or she would tell you the way things work. When they tell you how it all works, they will tell you in such a way that you will know that they are quite sure about what they are talking about. But can we be that certain? Can any of us be that certain about the things that we see and what we perceive of the world around us? The problem with being so certain arises from the fact that our perception, the sense data that we are able to perceive, is not that powerful or that exact. Looking about you, you would most likely say that you are quite certain about the things that you see before you. Certainly, if you see a book and you reach for that book, you will find that the book is there. We are all quite certain that if we hear a bus and see a bus, then that bus must be there. And if we don't get out of the way, then we will surely feel the consequence of that mistake. The world is not an illusion, we prove that to ourselves every day. But this is not the problem. Our problem lies in the fact that we believe that the world is just like the way we see it, hear it, feel it, smell it, and taste it. Unfortunately, our senses have a very limited range. If we were to study every single one of our senses, like hearing for example, we would realize that, within the broad range of possible noises, we are only able to hear a very small range of them. While humans have an average range of hearing in between 20 Hz and 20,000 Hz, there is an infinitude of possible sound above and below this limit. To give you an example, this is the lowest sound ever perceived in the universe. This sound was detected by astronomers studying the Perseus cluster. Imagine the amount of sound then that you can't hear right now. If you ever see your pet lifting its head and corking its ears, one way or the other, without you ever having heard anything at all, then you get a basic idea of just how limited our hearing is. The point of all this is to illustrate the fact that our sense perceptions are very limited, and yet, we seldom stop to consider the fact that there could be entire universes existing around us that we are not able to perceive in any way. The size of our universe is limited by the range of our perception, and even with our most subtle instruments, this perception is still quite limited. The world out there is not an illusion, but we are only able to perceive a small fraction of it. Even our most sensitive instruments cannot begin to perceive all that is going on around us. These instruments can even give us a highly skewed interpretation of the world around us, because we tend to create instruments to perceive that which we think we should perceive. It is indeed the case then that we are fundamentally limited by the narrow scope of our rigid beliefs. Realize then that wherever you are right now, there's far more going on around you than you could possibly imagine. While it is possible that you could have a very large imagination, this imagination is still limited by your senses, because it is nearly impossible to imagine things which we can't even conceive perceptually. We live in an infinite world, made up of the known and the unknown. Our mistake comes from our insistence on trying to fit the unknown into rules that we have developed through the little that we do know about the known. Instead of looking into the unknown with a broad perspective, we tend to look into it with a narrow focus, trying to see what we expect to see. But the unknown is the unknown, because it exists in a realm beyond our current perceptual and intellectual capabilities. The only way that we will be able to make any headway into the unknown is by expanding our intellect enough so that it is able to understand that the broad range of possibilities out there can only be accessed by wiping clean our current expectations. There's an old Zen story that illustrates this point. An academic from a local university once approached a Zen master wanting to learn the way. The master asked the academic into his home and served him tea. While they were having tea, the master politely told the academic that he could not possibly teach him the way and that the academic would need to go somewhere else. As he did so, the master picked up the tea kettle and began to pour more hot water into the academic's teacup, even though the teacup was already quite full. The teacup spilled over, and the academic was forced to jump back to avoid being scalded by the hot water. With a startled look on his face, and thinking that perhaps the old man was a bit off his rocker, the academic asked, "But sir, I am a very learned man. I hold many degrees in many different scientific fields. I think that if anybody would get what you have to say, it would be me." "You see," said the master, "if I were to teach you about the way, you would never be able to grasp it. Just like your teacup, you are already too full. When we walk around, being ever so certain about what we perceive of the world around us, our teacup is full. The problem with normal human perception is that it lies to us, but just like the best liars, it doesn't tell us an outright lie, it just tells us half-truths. In order to empty our teacup, we must begin to realize that our perceptions are highly limited, and that we tend to see only what we expect to see. Anyone that tells you that the paranormal does not exist is someone who is completely unaware of just how little of the world they see, hear, smell, taste, and feel, and just how little of the world science is willing to take seriously. Anyone that tells you that UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, psychic abilities, etc., absolutely cannot be real, has deluded him or herself into believing that the unknown is only made up of different combinations of the infinitesimal parts that they do know. Their cup is completely full. But, in order to turn the knowledge of infinity into power, we have to empty our cup a little, so that we might begin to contemplate, and perhaps sometime in the future, believe that there is more to the world than what we might have considered before. Perhaps one day, we might consider the possibility that certain unperceived substances, vibrating at frequencies which are beyond our physical senses, are real, even though we can't perceive them, even with our current scientific instruments. Could there be entire universes all around us that we are not able to see? In future videos, we will try to explore such possibilities. If you are interested in expanding your ability to experience some of the mystery that surrounds us, then realize that, even with our limited perceptive abilities, there are ways to extend our awareness. We do perceive very little of what is around us, but we can learn to expand our senses and perceive more. If you are interested in such possibilities, then I recommend the book, The Occult Experience. There is also the possibility of using senses other than our physical ones, which can greatly expand what we can perceive as human beings. This can be done by learning to exit the physical body and learning to perceive with the energetic double body senses. If you are interested in this, then I would recommend the book, Out of Body Experiences, Quickly and Naturally. I will leave the links below. Remember this. The world is a complex mystery, a mystery so vast and unfathomable that it could be said that we are all surrounded by infinity. Because there are indeed infinite universes all around us. It's kind of funny how we strive so hard to reach the bottom of the deepest seas and faraway planets in the distant cosmos, when around the odd angles of our perceptions, we can sometimes find, to our dismay perhaps, vast dark worlds to be explored and feared. Perhaps we should all just forget about all this and heed H.P. Lovecraft's warning. He wrote, "The most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. We live on a placid island of ignorance, in the midst of black seas of the infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far.